Did you know that 80% of readers stop reading a book after the first few chapters? Why? Because the characters don't feel real enough, or they don't change in a way that matters. This is a shocking fact, but it highlights something most writers overlook. Creating characters with arcs that truly captivate the audience is hard. And yet, it's the one thing that can make your story unforgettable. You might think writing character arcs is easy. After all, it's just about getting your characters from point A to point B, right? Wrong. If you want your fantasy characters to stand out, you need to craft arcs that are more than just a sequence of events. They need to be complex, surprising, and, most importantly, meaningful. In this guide, you'll discover how to create character arcs that not only grab attention but keep it. You'll learn how to start with flaws that evolve, create villains that leave readers questioning their own beliefs, and use the world around your characters to shape their journeys. Best of all, you'll learn how to end your character arcs in a way that leaves a lasting emotional impact, something most writers fail to do. Ready to craft character arcs better than 99% of writers? Let's dive in. Chapter 1: Uncovering the Hidden Depths. The secret to dynamic beginnings. Starting your character arc off right is crucial. Many writers think their protagonist must be a shining beacon of goodness in the beginning, but this approach often results in predictable stories. Instead, start with characters who aren't perfect, characters with deep flaws, broken dreams, or secrets they're hiding. When you do this, your audience will be intrigued from the very first chapter. Remember, every good story begins with a question: what does this character want? But even more important is, what are they afraid of? Fear drives growth. Take J.R.R. Tolkien's Frodo Baggins. He's not a perfect hero when he begins. He's reluctant, terrified of the journey ahead. But this vulnerability is what makes his journey so compelling. We can all relate to his fear of change. In fact, vulnerability is one of the most underrated tools in character development. It's how you make characters human. You want your reader to ask, how will they change? How will they overcome their flaws? Those questions should be burning in the reader's mind by the time your first chapter ends. A great example is from The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Katniss starts as a selfish survivor, and her arc isn't just about saving the world, it's about learning how to care for others. Her growth feels earned because it starts with a character we can all relate to, someone who struggles with selfishness, fear, and the need for control. Another key to a dynamic beginning is not to reveal everything at once. Give your character an air of mystery. Withhold details that will make readers ask, what is this character hiding? Think of Harry Potter. From the start, we know there's more to him than meets the eye, and that makes us want to read more. Chapter 2: Arc with a Twist. Designing flaws that evolve, not disappear. So you've given your character flaws. Now, what do you do with them? The best stories don't erase flaws, they evolve them. This is a huge distinction that most writers miss. Think of a flaw as something that transforms over time, shaping the character into someone different, but not perfect. A common mistake is to fix a flaw by the end of the story. This is unsatisfying. It feels forced and artificial. Take Daenerys Targaryen from Game of Thrones. At the start, she's a girl who is easily manipulated, but by the end of her arc, she's a queen determined to take what's hers. However, her flaws, impulsiveness, overconfidence, don't vanish. They grow in complexity, making her tragic end even more heartbreaking. This is why flaws should be explored, not erased. For example, in The Lord of the Rings, Aragorn's sense of duty and guilt makes him a reluctant leader, but by the end, he learns to embrace his true identity. His journey is about transformation, not perfection. By evolving his flaws, we can see the emotional growth he experiences. Another strategy is to make flaws adaptive. Characters can learn how to control or manage their weaknesses without completely overcoming them. Take Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. He begins as naive and impulsive, but as the series progresses, his maturity grows. He doesn't lose his idealism, but he learns when to temper it with wisdom. What makes this kind of arc powerful is its authenticity. No one is flawless, and the most impactful character journeys reflect that reality. Show your character's flaws in action. Force them to face these flaws in tough situations. Let their weaknesses push him to change, not disappear. Chapter 3, The Mirror of Change. Crafting turning points that shatter expectations. Turning points are the moments that define character arcs. They're the moments when a character's beliefs, desires, or worldview shatter, forcing them to evolve. The best turning points don't just change the plot, they change the character. Let's talk about The Dark Knight. Batman's journey is defined by a shocking turning point, his failure to save Rachel, which forces him to question his role as a hero. It's a brutal moment of clarity, but it shapes him into the hero Gotham needs, not the one he thought he should be. The key here is that the turning point has to be earned. It can't come out of nowhere. Turning points are also about contrast. In the Chronicles of Narnia, Lucy goes from an innocent child to a brave leader, but her key turning point is the moment she steps up to challenge her siblings. It's a twist, but it feels natural because she's been growing into that role for the entire story. A unique strategy is to use micro-turning points throughout the story. These are smaller moments that challenge the character and prepare them for the big, life-changing decisions. Think of Frodo Baggins again. Every time he faces temptation, such as when he's offered the ring, it's a mini turning point. Each time, he chooses a different path, slowly shaping the larger arc of his journey. Keep in mind that the most shocking turning points are those that challenge the character's identity. In The Hobbit, Bilbo's moment of transformation happens when he chooses to take the ring and use it to save his friends, despite his earlier reluctance to act. It's a decision that shakes his self-image to the core. Lastly, always remember that turning points don't have to be big physical battles or life or death decisions. They can be emotional or mental moments of realization that change everything. Frodo's turning point isn't just in the final battle. It's in the quiet realization that he can't carry the ring alone, and he must trust Sam. That moment, though small, reshapes the entire story. If you're finding these strategies helpful, don't forget to subscribe for more tips on crafting unforgettable characters and storylines. Chapter 4, Building the Villain. You secretly want to root for. Villains are often one-dimensional, but they don't have to be. Great villains are reflections of the heroes they oppose. They mirror the flaws and struggles of the protagonist, making the conflict more complex. The key to writing a great villain is to ensure they are multi-dimensional, just as flawed as your hero. Take Thanos from Marvel's Avengers. At first, his actions seem purely evil, but as the story unfolds, we learn his goal: to balance the universe by wiping out half of life. His reasoning, though extreme, makes him relatable. He believes he's doing what's necessary for the greater good. This perspective makes him more tragic than simply a madman. His complexity is why audiences are drawn to him, despite his horrific actions. In fantasy, villains can be especially interesting when they're tied to the hero's growth. In The Witcher, Geralt's primary antagonist is not a single villain but the world around him, society's unjust treatment of monsters. This external villain reflects Geralt's internal struggle to maintain his humanity while facing the darker parts of the world. The villain doesn't have to be a person, it can be an ideology or a societal structure. Another strategy is to make the villain's actions inevitable. A great villain's arc doesn't come out of nowhere, it's built on earlier events, motivations, and beliefs. In A Song of Ice and Fire, characters like Cersei Lannister are driven by their love for family and power. Her descent into cruelty and madness feels tragic because of her initial motivations. Furthermore, the best villains don't just want power, they want something the hero values. In The Lion King, Scar wants to usurp Mufasa not just because he craves power, but because he wants to be loved and respected. This deeper, more relatable motivation makes him stand out as a compelling antagonist. The takeaway: your villain should make sense. They shouldn't just act evil for the sake of being evil. They should challenge your hero in ways that force the hero to grow, adapt, and change. The best villains are mirrors of the protagonist's fears, desires, and flaws. Chapter 5, The World as a Catalyst. Letting your setting shape character growth. In fantasy stories, the setting is more than just a backdrop. It's a catalyst for character growth. The world around your character can shape their journey in profound ways. A well-crafted world doesn't just exist, it actively influences the story and the characters within it. Consider the Harry Potter series. The wizarding world isn't just a magical setting, it's a reflection of Harry's inner struggles. The way he learns about his past and his parents, and how he grapples with the expectations placed upon him, are tied to the environment he's in. Hogwarts is both a sanctuary and a pressure cooker, and Harry's arc wouldn't be the same without the world's influence. One strategy is to create a setting that challenges the character. In Dune by Frank Herbert, the desert planet of Arrakis is not just a physical location, it's a harsh, unforgiving environment that shapes Paul Atreides' journey. The planet's extreme conditions force him to confront his fears, desires, and identity. The world becomes a character in itself, pushing Paul to grow in ways he never anticipated. Similarly, in the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin, the apocalyptic world constantly forces the characters to evolve. The ever-changing environment plays a critical role in shaping Essun's emotional journey. Her growth is intertwined with the Earth's destruction, showing how the setting can reflect and amplify a character's internal conflict. A good way to do this is to consider how your character reacts to their environment. Does the world make them stronger, or does it break them down? In The Lord of the Rings, Middle-earth is beautiful but fraught with danger. Frodo's journey is made harder by the physical and political challenges of the world, but it's also shaped by the bonds he forms with those around him. Incorporating the world as a catalyst for growth doesn't just apply to physical settings, it can be cultural or magical systems, too. Think about how a character might evolve based on the magical system they interact with. Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson uses its unique magic system to shape characters' arcs, as each character's relationship with their powers influences their worldview and choices. Chapter 6, Endings that Echo Forever. Crafting lasting emotional payoffs. The ending of a character arc should feel like a natural conclusion, not just a tied-up bow. It should resonate emotionally, leaving readers with something to reflect on long after they've finished the story. A great ending doesn't solve everything, it leaves a lasting impression. Take the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. By the end, Randalph's arc is complete, but his transformation is bittersweet. He achieves his goal, but at what cost? The ending of his arc is satisfying not because everything is fixed, but because it feels earned and real. The emotional weight of the conclusion lingers because his journey was full of sacrifices. A unique strategy is to create endings that leave room for interpretation. In the Dark Tower series by Stephen King, Roland's journey ends in a way that feels both triumphant and tragic. The nature of his quest and the world itself is cyclical, leaving the reader to contemplate what the ending really means. It's not just an ending, it's a thought-provoking question. One important aspect of crafting a great ending is subverting expectations. In The Fellowship of the Ring, the climax of the story isn't an epic battle but a quiet moment where Frodo decides to continue the journey, despite the overwhelming odds. This decision is the culmination of his arc, and it feels powerful because it's deeply personal. Great endings also reflect the character's growth. In The Hobbit, Bilbo returns home a completely different person. He's no longer the shy hobbit who once feared adventure. His emotional payoff isn't about defeating a dragon, it's about realizing his own strength and resilience. His personal growth is what makes the ending satisfying. Lastly, endings that echo forever often involve bittersweet elements. In A Game of Thrones, the end of Ned Stark's arc is tragic, but it resonates because it shows that honor and integrity don't always win in a brutal world. His death sets the stage for the emotional journeys of the characters who follow him, proving that not every character arc ends on a high note, but that doesn't make it any less impactful. By focusing on building complex villains, using the world to shape your character's growth, and crafting emotionally resonant endings, you can write character arcs that not only stand out but leave a lasting impact on your readers. These strategies will help you create stories that feel alive, complex, and emotionally satisfying. If you want more tips and strategies for writing characters that stick with your readers, subscribe now to get updates and deeper insights into the art of storytelling.